Yes, 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 yes! Hello, everybody! Welcome back to Pixel Therapy. Today is the day that I don't know. I don't know what today is. But basically, I have Project Cars 2. I've done a bit of gameplay. I know the channel has been quiet for about 2 weeks now, but there is a reason for this. So, in a little behind the scenes news, the first thing that happened was I had to get my video game capture on point. I think I did a few videos, about 3 videos when I started the channel. I did a live stream and I did a few ones where I did commentary over gameplay, kind of like this one. And I had a look at them on YouTube after uploading them, and I wasn't impressed by the video quality that was coming out. And even with my first video, I wasn't impressed by the audio quality that was coming out. So I decided that I needed to upgrade my hardware just a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit. So what did Daddy do? Well, Daddy went and got himself a blue snowball mic. One of those blue snowball mics. It wasn't too expensive. I think I spent about $90 on the mic. And this is the first time we're using it for a voiceover. I've done a test and it sounds great. But then I thought to myself, right, time to get back into it. Time to make that content. And let's grow this channel together. So that was the first thing. The second thing that I did and I put together had to do with the video quality. So I am actually uploading and streaming these on my PlayStation 4. And it's not even the fancy Pro 4, right? It ain't none of that fancy stuff. No. This is PlayStation Vanilla. This is PlayStation OG. This is PlayStation from the day it came out. Actually, when I say vanilla, it is literally white. It is the Glacier White Edition that came out with the first Destiny game. Not Destiny 2. Destiny 1. Alright? So, in terms of hardware, it's a little lacking, okay? It needs a little pip in its step. So, it was either get an Elgato HD 60 to try and get you guys up from 720p to at least 1080p worth of video quality, or get a gaming PC. So, $200 New Zealand versus $3,000 New Zealand. You know which one my girlfriend would let me get, right? So yeah, I got the Elgato HD 60. I fired it up. I did a few tests, and I watched it on YouTube. Watched my gameplay footage on YouTube, and yeah, it looks decent. It looks better. It looks better than what I was producing. So hopefully, I'm gonna have to tweak the lighting, the contrast, the color, a little more behind the scenes stuff to get it perfect, but it's a good start. It gives me a good base. Also, with the Elgato, there's a little bit of editing software there. So guess what, people? Intros. This channel will have its own stylized intro. So hopefully it just ramps up the quality of what I'm doing, and it makes it look a little bit more prettier for you guys. That way, when you come in and you have a look at the channel and you like what you see, then hopefully you'll stick around. You know what I mean? Hopefully you stick around. Now, moving on. What are we doing today? What's the game plan? What is on la agenda? Well, I got Project Cars 2 on Friday, on the 22nd, and today the stream is being done on the 26th. So I've had Project Cars 2 for 4 days. Within those 4 days, I have done, see if I can pick it up. Nice thing about it is that it keeps your stats, you see. I have played about 5.2 hours of the game. I've spent half of that time, well, not even half of that. I've spent 0.6 hours, so about 30 minutes in career mode. I've spent an hour and 6 minutes just doing normal solo gaming. And I spent 2 hours and 9 minutes online. So I spent the bulk of this game online. And there's going to be a video that I'm going to have a discussion about that with regards to the online rating. But I'm actually going to leave that for a video that I'm going to do after this one. Alright? I want to do a video on their online rating system, what I've learned about it, and maybe kind of give you some, you know, as much tips and tricks I can give you based on playing it for only 5 hours and 5.2 hours. As many tips and tricks with regards to increasing your online driving rating. that's another story. That's going to be for a video coming up shortly after this one. So stick around, because I'm just going to be uploading content and trying to catch up with my little 2-week hiatus. So, anyways. So that's how much I've played the game. And I thought to myself, I haven't done a first impressions video. Not too sure you people think my opinion count. I'm new to this. And you're probably like, who's this guy? Why does he think we care? And not only that, bigger YouTube channels, well, bigger than mine, have already done reviews. And they've already given first impressions. But, I have a secret weapon. You see, I have been sim racing for only 2 months, since August of this year, and we are at the end of September. So, I think I started August 22nd. I joined an online racing forum. So, we're looking at August 22nd, September 22nd, so only a month. I've been sim racing for just about a month. So, what you guys are getting is not only a noob's opinion, but an unbiased opinion. I don't have any loyalties yet. I haven't been playing Assetto Corsa for my entire life, and I'm a fanboy. There isn't going to be a fanboy. There might be a little bit of marketing hype, because generally that's what casual gamers tend to fall into, the whole marketing hype campaign. Was I excited about this game? Hell yes. But anyways, I digress. So I'm going to try and give you my first impressions. I'm going to try and keep them as honest and as open as I possibly can. And yeah, you take them based on, this is a guy who's new to racing. He's started off with Assetto Corsa, loved it so much that he's moved into Project Cars 2, and is going to compare and contrast everything from the force feedback, what I felt, and just some other little things that I'm seeing around in the whole fascinating world of sim racing. Now, for all those people who are not into sim racing, don't worry, this channel is not strictly going to be about sim racing. I think I've done a Destiny's gameplay video for about an hour that's uploaded. I'm actually going to do another one and continue the campaign. I actually, to get my head around it, I started another Destiny's character, did that, but we're not talking Destiny now. We're on this. I'll get back to you. Just know that there's other game types of other things on this channel. Right, so, what's the plan of attack today? Well, today I have 3 things on my phone that we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss Project Cars 2, my first impressions. We're going to discuss the feeling of all sim racings and whether all sims should actually feel the same, especially when it comes to force feedback. And I'm probably just going to make a few comments on the whole, if you're driving hardcore, you don't use assists versus using the whole authentic car attributes that you find in Project Cars 2 or the factory setting that you find in Assetto Corsa. So, while we do this, I'm actually going to do a little practice while we talk, so we can talk and drive, and you guys can actually watch something for an online gameplay. So basically what I want to do is I want to make, like I said, a video about my, about the online rating. But to best prepare yourself for online rating, you need to practice. So while I'm practicing, I'm going to do this video, we're going to have a chat, then hopefully once I've got a few laps in and I feel confident enough, I'm going to jump online, and then I'm going to do my video about the online rating, and then see if there's method to my madness, if it actually works out in my favor. So, first of all, I'm going to find myself an Audi. I am picking the Audi because I have an online racing league that I'm a part of, and I'll be actually racing this car in the online racing league. So, we are going to go with the Le Mans version. We're going to take the track and we're going to put it to Spa. Where are we? We're gonna go Spa, the latest one, not the vanilla one. With regards to, we're gonna put in 3 slots because that's the way to go. 4 slots. We're gonna go from clear. We're gonna do clear, light rain. Better yet, storm. Nah, let's just make that rain. And then thoughts. Then we just bring a little sunshine at the end of the game, just to make things all dope. Then we're gonna make this 20 laps. What do you guys think? 20 laps, and we will just put this on real time. I don't necessarily want it to be nighttime. All right. Mandatory pit stop. No. With the slots. Okay, I think I'm okay with that. Then we'll chuck in about 10 minutes of qualifying. Sorry, 10 minutes of practice. And then about 10 minutes of quali. Actually, we'll make this 15. I'm pretty bad. I need the practice. And then quali, yeah. We'll do it that way. And then what else is going on with my life? Then we will save that. And I think we are good to go. I think we're good to go. Okay. So let us fire this up. Alright, so loading times. The first thing. So I've got, like I said, PlayStation Vanilla. You've just seen me hit the go button. How are the loading times of the game? So this is me starting about my first impressions of Project Cars. So you would think a game that is this graphically intensive with so many cars, so many tracks, so many weather systems, the loading time would literally take a while. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. I would give it about, what are we looking at here? 30 seconds that we reckon by the time this thing's done? From when I first, because it kind of jumped straight to 12% and we're at 75% now. So I'll say, yeah, loading time, you're looking at an average of about 30 seconds, give or take. So up we're running, okay? What we're going to do for our pit strategy in this one is we're going to make a whole new one. What's rainy? Let's edit this one. What is this one? In rainy, I have fuel. All tires, yes. We'll change that to width rather than extreme width. Okay, and then gas will crank you up to a nice round number like 30. And move back, then damage. Yeah. And we will save that. And then we will move it to rainy. Okay. So, I think what I'm gonna do, giving my first impressions, is I'm gonna talk about my background. And I think I might have mentioned this in some other earlier videos, but I'll pretty much glaze over it. So, I'm new to sim racing. I bought a copy of Dirt and a very low budget, non-force feedback Thrustmaster wheel. That was the T80, so that's the one with the bungee cable. And I started playing Dirt on it. And as I was playing Dirt, I loved it. I thought it was a good time. So after that, I basically decided, you know what? I am going to invest and I'm going to dive into the sim racing world and I'm going to learn more. So then I went on and I purchased Project Cars 1. I got myself a Thrustmaster T300 with the T3PA pedals. And I got myself a copy of Assetto Corsa. And I noticed very quickly, because of the force feedback, that there is a difference between the original Project Cars and Assetto Corsa. And basically, I didn't like the way Project Cars 1 felt. It was night and day with Assetto Corsa. It really was. It felt flat. It felt muted. I didn't like the way the force feedback worked. I couldn't feel the car. I was just like, either I got my settings wrong or what. But because I was new, I didn't have the time or the patience to twiddle with my force feedback settings. I just came to a point where I said it's not working. Whereas with Assetto Corsa, the moment I plugged it in, it felt great out of the box. So for neither games, I didn't actually sit down and try and twiddle with the force feedback settings on my T300 wheel. So this is me playing on the PlayStation 4, by the way, right? So there's less customization, not customability, that's not a word, customization to begin with. And so some of you might be saying, well, if you tweaked it, Project Cars 1 would have felt good. I'm a newbie. I didn't have that time. I'm coming from the world where you use a pad and everything just works. And again, Project Cars 1 doesn't work with a pad as well. So that's another issue. But with Assetto Corsa, it worked and it felt great. And so I started playing Assetto Corsa. And I've been playing Assetto Corsa. And then I got on board the Project Cars 2 hype train. And they promised a better tire model. They promised better force feedback. They promised dynamic weather. They promised a live track with Live Track 3.0. They promised better online customization and being able to rank the people that you filter out the people by ranking and all the goody stuff that you've seen in the videos, right? And I know you've seen it because you're watching this one, so you kind of have an idea of what they promised. And so I bought it, I plugged it in, and it's different. It's a lot better than the first one. Is it as good as Assetto Corsa in terms of the force feedback and the feel? No. Why? Because when I put it in and I started driving it, it felt off and it felt a little flat. But after about what I did was I took a track and a car that I knew from Assetto Corsa, and that was Imola, and that was the KTM Expo, and I drove it around in Assetto Corsa, got a feel of what it felt like. Then I went back to Project Cars 2 on the same track with the same car, and then I started tweaking it, trying to get a similar feel. And about 40 minutes later, I got something relatively close. It didn't feel exactly the same. It didn't feel as tight. So the cars in Project Cars 2 didn't feel as tight as the cars in Assetto Corsa in terms of the feel and the handling, but it felt good. I kind of got what the game was telling me, right? And this is where we go into one of the first things I want to talk about. The first thing that I want to talk about is how simulators or sim racing games deal with the idea of translating force feedback or real world physics through software, right? And so there are many variables that you have there. So for example, when I was talking about the feel of the cars between Assetto Corsa and Project Cars 2, I used the word it felt tighter, or the cars in Assetto Corsa feel tight. It is literally up to your interpretation what I mean by that. I know what I mean, but you guys are going to be sitting back and you're going to be thinking, well, he's used the word tight in terms of handling. What does he mean? Well, what I mean is I can kind of do this and it feels like there's a slight amount of flicks or controlled movement within the car. Like the car is more flexible in the way that it handles in Project Cars 2. Whereas in Assetto Corsa, they feel sharper, they feel tighter. A little twitch like this, and then the car's kind of moving. Not that it's out of control, but it just feels like there is less flicks. And I think the reason Project Cars 2 feels like this is that it's the tire model. It is the feeling you get of the rubber distorting under the vehicle. So some people might actually feel that force, and they might say, hey, hang on, I don't like the way this feels. This doesn't feel as tight, because normally I just nudge my steering wheel in a particular direction and the car moves it. Whereas clearly the people at Slightly Mad Studios were like, no, cars aren't tires. Tires are made out of rubber. Rubber have a certain amount of give. Therefore, when you move your steering wheel, it's not just going to nudge in a slight move. You're going to have a little rubbery, flexible feel in the car, and it's about working through that and then actually adjusting. So the point that I'm making is, when it comes to force feedback and these games, they have to listen to what the drivers who are consulting tell them, because all these guys are a bunch of computer guys who just do coding, right? And they're being told by race car drivers what the car should feel like. then they put in the physics behind it. And if you have a tire model that's different from the one that's used by Kunos with Assetto Corsa, it's going to react differently, and the flicks is going to be different. And therefore, you're going to have two games with two exact same cars on the exact same track that is laser, and they're both laser scanned using the same technology, but feeling different. So that's the first thing, is that I don't believe that all force feedback within two different games needs to feel exactly the same. And I don't believe that there being a difference in the way the force feedback feels means that one game is less of a sim than another. All it simply means is that they have looked at slightly different ways of communicating the physics that are involved for the handling or what the car is actually doing. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, none of the ooh, that's bouncy. None of these simulators are accurate because they don't simulate G-forces. Even if you have a motion rig, that's still not quite as accurate. This is an interpretation of what real-world physics is like. So it's not, in my mind, it's not so much whether or not one game feels exactly the same as the other. In my mind, it's how do the physics in each game relate to the physics in that same game, and how those respond to your control input with the brake, the throttle, and the handling. So for example, with Project Cars 2, you have this give, you have this almost rubberized feel with the tires. So what does that mean when I spin out of control with regard to that? Do I feel the lateral almost like stutter as the car sort of brushes against the tarmac sideways? Do I feel that in my steering control? Because of the flicks, do I have a few more seconds to actually counter steer and correct a slide? And if so, what does that mean for the force feedback that I'm feeling, the way that I react, and the way that I race? I hope I'm sort of trying to make sense with what I'm saying, as in, it's not so much taking Assetto Corsa and saying, well, this is the way every sim should feel. No. It's saying, well, what do you guys think is the best way to interpret, you know, a tire model, or is the best way to interpret the change in the car's weight, the weight transfer when you brake or when you accelerate? And based on that and your interpretation of that, how does all of that together with the track on a dry day as opposed to a wet track, how do they relate and how do they interact with each other? And is all of that realistic compared to what would happen in a real car? Another thing is that with force feedback, as you would all know, is cars feel different. Real world cars feel different. And therefore the steering and the handling in real world cars all feel different. So the tire model, the track, and everything all have to account for this. So where am I going this? After having that big yarn, what am I trying to say? Well, what I'm trying to say is that I came to the conclusion, and this is my opinion, that Project Cars 2 does feel different, but it doesn't feel, I don't think that makes it less of a sim or simcade, right? I think that it is a simulator that gets certain things correct and certain things not so much correct. Just like Assetto Corsa gets certain things correct and certain things not so correct. So for those of you who want a clear-cut opinion and a clear-cut point of view, I would say that Project Cars 2, in terms of the handling, it's good, but it's not as good or as tight as Assetto Corsa is. And I think a lot of that is based on the way they've done their tire model, in my preference. Not so much that they've done it incorrectly, right? What else? Force feedback. I think that with Project Cars 2, the force feedback needs a little more work to get it, I don't know, tighter or feeling good out of the gate. I think if I had never played Assetto Corsa, I probably would have accepted it for what it was. Because the thing with force feedback, okay, this is my opinion again, is everything I'm saying is that I feel the purpose of force feedback is to translate what the game is doing to the driver in the car. So there's no point in having all this realistic physics if those physics are not translated to you through the steering wheel in a way in which you understand, and in a way that enables you to react and appropriately react or maybe anticipate what the car is going to do, right? So I feel that with Assetto Corsa, I was able to very quickly and out of the box figure out what the wheel and the force feedback was trying to tell me about what the car is doing, and I was able to react appropriately, of course, based on my own skill level. Whereas with Project Cars 2, fair enough, it's a new game. I haven't been playing it as long as Assetto Corsa, but I am still learning it. So, for example, this track on Spa is a track that I've driven a few times with this particular car in Assetto Corsa, and I'm quite familiar with it. But as you can clearly see, I'm going quite slow. One, because I'm talking, and two, because I'm actually trying to get my head around how to take some of these curves. Don't worry, as the time goes on, I'll start getting a little better and a little faster in this video. What's the next thing that I can talk about? So, oh yeah, driving aids. Another thing that I found interesting when I came into this whole sim world is how everyone literally has a hard-on, and yes, I mean it in that way, a hard-on for driving with no assists, because that is more hardcore, or that shows a higher level of, I don't know, badassery, for lack of a better term. But I pretty much think that, and this is something that was an ethos that I heard, and I think there's some truth to it, is that making a sim harder to drive doesn't necessarily make it realistic, right? If you think of a racing car, which is $300,000 at least, right? Especially with the very high performance ones. It's a $300,000 piece of machinery. And these guys are spending so much money and so much time and technology to enter these races and to win. The last thing they're going to do is make something that is difficult for the driver to drive. Alright? So some of these cars actually come with certain assists, electronic assists, so that you're able to drive them because they're so high-powered vehicles. So sometimes when you get into these online races and you find people driving with no assist, it's fun, it's tricky, it does require a level of skill, but it is not necessarily the most realistic way of doing things. Do you know what I mean? And again, I think this now comes down to what is realistic and what is it that people prefer. And this is where I think the crux of the argument between Project Cars 2 and Assetto Corsa, for example, lies, is how much of it is actually realism and how much of it is preference. Someone can argue to you that no, the way Project Cars 2 has done its handling is more realistic, but maybe a lot of people don't like the way it feels. While others would argue that they like the tighter feeling of Assetto Corsa, but then someone will say, well, not all cars handle that way. Not all cars are that precise. I don't know. But definitely, from my opinion, I do feel that Assetto Corsa does feel a little nicer. I do find that with Project Cars 2, there is this, like if you look at the wheel here, and I don't know if it's my force feedback settings, i.e. the volume's too high on my force feedback settings, the car does jagger a bit when I hit some of the bumps in the road that's been laser scanned. You do get this jarring thing, and it does make the car more difficult to control. So that's something to be looked at, and I don't know if that's something that I can actually tweak out and get rid of. Whereas when I'm doing my races, yeah, fair enough, I will do some races with no assist on, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's more realistic. I think if you want realism, either go to the authentic setting in Project Cars 2 and then drive the car the way it's meant to be driven, or the factory setting in Assetto Corsa, and then that will probably give you the more realistic setup for these vehicles. Whoa. So that's pretty much me rambling on and on with regards to this stuff. What's my verdict? Do I like Project Cars 2? Yes, I do like Project Cars 2. I think that it's a little unfair to compare it with Assetto Corsa, because Assetto Corsa is an older game. It is a much more mature game. It's a game that has had numerous patches, whereas aside from the day one patch that came out with this game, Project Cars 2 hasn't had enough time to actually tune out, iron out all of its bugs and its kinks, and it hasn't had time to mature, and it hasn't had time to develop. it's going to feel different from Assetto Corsa, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think part of that is just the fact that it's a different game with different people behind it, and they are making different interpretations. I do think that it's a good base. It's a good base to start with. I think that the dynamic weather and all that other goodness is fantastic, and that will bring a new life and a freshness to the game. I played it online for quite a bit, and I'm gonna have a chat about that in my online video. And different surfaces and under different weather conditions. And mind you, the tire model that they have, even though it doesn't feel as tight, is definitely dynamic and definitely does change based on the track and the surface that you're racing on, whether it is snow, tarmac, dirt, right? And that's a big thing. Assetto Corsa doesn't have that. So if you want variety, if you want a good multiplayer, if you are on PlayStation 4 and the only sim you have is AC, I would say get this. If you're not sold, wait for it to come down in price and get it. Or if you have game shops like we do, which allow trade-ins, go trade in an old game. Go trade in your first copy of Project Cars and then get this one discounted. That's what I did. If you're on PC and you have iRacing and you have everything, then you probably do understand what I'm saying about how these sims feel different. Because I'm sure iRacing doesn't feel the same as R-Factor, which doesn't feel the same as Assetto Corsa with regards to force feedback and handling. It doesn't feel the same. And I think you guys know that. So I think this whole thing is more of a PlayStation thing where we look at one and we expect one to feel the same because I don't know. We're limited. We haven't had enough experience with the sim world to sort of be able to pick that out. If you have a consumer wheel, a Thrustmaster, Fanatic, G29, your force feedback is pretty much set. It will need a little tweaking, and it feels okay, right? I do hear that the PC guys with direct drive wheels need to put a little more work in it, but I think Jack Spade came out with a force feedback setting guide that you guys can download, and I hear that's pretty decent as well for those of you who are on PC. Right, I've rambled. I have said a whole bunch of stuff. I'm back uploading, so hopefully if the sound is good and the video is good, this is going to come out for this video. I just want to say thank you very much for listening, you delightful delinquents. Please subscribe, please like, let's grow this channel. And yeah, if you guys have things that you want to see in terms of gaming, footage, commentary, the style of the videos that I'm doing, let me know. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace!